Hey, this is Misery Loves Company, a weekly social reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Every Friday, we welcome outsider and transgressive writers to come and share their work with us. And it's fucking Friday, so let's get going here. First up tonight is Brandon.
All right. Well, no easy way to say this, I guess. I did post about this on Twitter, but last weekend I got some bad news in the family. My aunt was actually murdered. So this is a little poem that I threw together, just trying to put my thoughts in place. Phone rings, feeling numb. You try to process the words as they come. You try to process the sum. You try to process what has become of the life of the aunt that was always cold and distant and boldly outspoken about her views that were old and racist, which you saw she was told loudly over the aftermath of a Thanksgiving dinner. But none of that matters now. And you try to process how this could be true. Just wow. Grievously wounded when the cops came. Family dinners won't be the same. The same dinners that years past included the man who now sits in jail accused of murder, the same way he used to sit in the big gray armchair in the living room next to every Christmas tree, every pile of Christmas presents that you ever remember opening growing up. Every Thanksgiving meal that was served up had that beady-eyed Frenchman sitting next to the turkey that sometimes he was asked to carve up. And now all you can think about is what you don't know. Numb to the core because of what you don't know. Hoping she wasn't carved up like those birds, but you can't find the words. And even though the cousin you know is strong enough to ask for the information, you don't want to make them think about it any more than they already have to. So thankful that it wasn't your mother, knowing that she nearly settled down with an abusive man at one point, but knowing that your cousins who you were raised with just lost their mom and their children just lost their grandmother because an abusive motherfucker wasn't stopped in time. And it feels phony to even try to make this rhyme, but that's his crime. And you wish you could all just hit rewind, but you know that you can't do that. You know that you can't take back the last big memory that you have with that aunt was telling her that she shouldn't have said that she didn't know why airports in Canada have mosques but not chapels, because there's more involved in Islamic prayer than Christian practices demand. And that's always going to hang over your head.
Man, fuck. First of all, man, I think I've already told you this, but I'm really fucking sorry
I
about your
appreciate
aunt.
that.
And I just there's been entirely too much fucking loss this year, and there's been entirely too much loss
Yeah.
the last few years. And I actually lost my own aunt 2 years ago, right around this time. Just it was early November, so not under those sort of circumstances. I can't even fucking imagine, and I cannot even fucking imagine
It's surreal. It is surreal.
violence. It's so fucking different, right? It's so fucking different because, with my aunt, she was in the hospital. I was able to call her. Her children were able to visit her. With something like this, it's
Yeah.
fucked. It really is. It's
That's just
profoundly
it.
fucked. And
There's a sense of closure that you can get when you're prepared
right.
that
And I don't
you
want to talk
just
about the
never get.
yeah. And I don't want to talk about the fucking poem here.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fucking raw, right? And it's a great expression of raw emotion. But man, it seems fucking silly and reductive to be like, oh, that was a to say something about the poem.
Yeah.
I'm just really fucking sorry for your loss, man.
Yeah.
I really
Thanks.
am.
On the bright side, I do have something that's probably a little more upbeat and a little more enjoyable. So this is a little something that I've got written up for my fiction setting. It's a write-up on the Dragon Slayers Guild. Heroes, braggarts, madmen, foolhardy, walking suicides, haunted by fire. These are epithets thrown at the members of the Dragon Slayers Guild, and with good reason. After all, what sane man or woman would dedicate their entire livelihood to the pursuit of killing creatures born of elemental fury, knowing that their very essence will be reborn into a new body elsewhere with all memories of their murderer intact? Yet that is precisely what they do. Members of the Dragon Slayers Guild know that success in their field will earn them an eternal enemy that may return in 10 or 20 years to claim vengeance, possibly even generations later to visit that fiery wrath upon their children or grandchildren. They all have their reasons, of course, and those reasons can vary wildly. For many, their drive comes from having lost a loved one or their homes to an attack from a dragon. Others know the familial hatred that dragons who have been hunted in the past retain, and feel that they must train themselves in the methods of the guild in order to survive when the sins of their forefathers are visited upon them. Some, typically those who are born in the modern arcologies who have never lived outside the walls, are spurred on by some internal need for glory and the accolades that come along with having slain one of the most dangerous creatures known to humanity. Those who are most feared, however, are the ones who know that in slaying a dragon, one can steal a bit of their power for themselves. And these power-maddened fanatics are no less monsters than the ones they hunt. As a result of these pressures, accolades, and accomplishments, many hunters and their hangers-on develop a sense of self-importance, an invaluable service to protect their own from an insurmountable threat, while the hunters perhaps of the guild are typically avoided by the common citizen. To most, the idea of being seen as friend of a dragon is terrifying, calling to mind visions of homes being burned to ash or pets or loved ones being snatched from the ground and carried to the horizon. The brash behavior of many hunters is even more off-putting, with many being so bold and braggadocious as to draw eye-rolling and send casual observers to cross the streets in avoidance. Organization. Despite the lack of an active recruitment drive and being so focused on a field where death seems imminent, the Dragon Slayers Guild of each major arcology in Vahenix seldom lacks for strength. In most of the major cities, the guild numbers in the hundreds, though the active martial branch that are considered the face of the organization are a mere fraction of this count. Each guild house tries to field at least 24 men and women who are both capable of and willing to put their lives on the line in the pursuit of actual dragon slaying. These individuals, designated hunters, spend much of their downtime training with the tools of their trade. Typically bold and brash, these hunters often gain a sort of minor celebrity within their home arcology, complete with admirers and detractors. Some gain a reputation as bullies, while others are seen as walking martyrs who have their impending sacrifice looming like a shadow. Guild shipwrights typically number twice the amount of hunters. It is their role as mechanics and pilots to build, repair, and maintain the land, air, and sea vessels that the guild fields to enable the hunt. Most shipwrights are not active combatants, instead focusing on facilitating the needs of the hunters in the field and on maneuvering techniques to evade when a dragon returns an attack. Some, however, are known to be nearly as bold as hunters in their own right, with at least a dozen known to have used their vehicles of choice as massive weapons themselves. Guild quartermasters and craftsmen compose the bulk of the guild house rosters. The craftsmen are the men and women who dedicate their time to constructing weapons, armors, and tools for the hunters, as well as brewing potions and alchemical concoctions that can help provide an edge in the field. Quartermasters maintain the guild houses and provide moral support and comfort to the field operatives, including in their ranks the kitchen staff and contractors to organize future hunts. Quartermasters also focus on procurement and supply chain related matters, ensuring that the flow of credits keeps the guild solvent. Membership requirements. Like most guilds, there are traits that a potential member must possess in order to gain entry. To become a member of the Dragon Slayers Guild, however, there are two methods to join. The first method grants instant access to any guild hall in any arcology in Vahenix, and that is to deliver proof in the form of a trophy or surveillance footage of the actual slaying of a dragon. It is vital to note that while there is only one step to this, the burden that follows is immense, as the spirit of that dragon will hunt the slayer as soon as its new body reaches maturity. In lieu of this constant threat, all guild fees are waived. Shipwrights and quartermasters have a bit more drawn-out path to membership. Much like other mercenary-style guilds, most shipwrights are drawn from former military pilots and crewmen, often those who have been discharged from their posts. Quartermasters are often skilled artisans or businesswomen who have either fallen on hard times without losing their skill or who have a desperate hunger for a sense of glory in their otherwise mundane lives. Not only must these prospects prove their capabilities in their field, but they are expected to pay their dues. These individuals often ply their trades outside the guild, either providing transportation or weaponry to buyers who have the credits to spare, and a portion of these forms of additional income are expected to be added to the guild's coffers. Methodology. Members of the Dragon Slayers Guild know full well that typical weapons are of little use against dragonkind. All but the smallest of wyverns and drakes are too thickly protected for swords, arrows, and even guns to be effective. In spite of this, all guild members are expected to be familiar in the use of small arms as a last resort of self-defense, studying the proper techniques to get blades and projectiles into the few known gaps in a dragon's defense, as well as how to combat the worshippers that some of the dragons seem to gather around them. Much of their approach is focused in the use of heavy weaponry mounted in place on their transports or deployed to a stationary position on the ground. Ballistae that hurl massive iron harpoons, catapults that launch massive nets weighted to restrict flight, and modified bolt rifles that have been scaled up to deploy lead tubes filled with explosives and alchemical corrosives are the favored tools of the trade. Dragon Slayers Guild vessels are often equipped with heavy iron rams set with impaling spikes as a latch-stitch tool to try to salvage a failed hunt.
That there, I experienced a little bit of whiplash, but man, I love your setting building stuff though. It's so rich, it's so detailed that you have like such an obvious interest in the nuance of this world, right? In the nuance of these organizations and like the small details. And I think that's what gives a world like a sense of richness and reality, right? Is that I I like that you can provide proof that you've slain a dragon either in the form of a trophy or surveillance footage. That's a nice touch. And it's those little touches like that that hint at the ways in which this setting isn't just any high fantasy setting, right? And I like the fact that you worked that stuff in kind of as subtle touches throughout. Yeah, man, it's good shit. It's good shit.
Thanks.
And once
Yeah.
again, man, I'm very sorry for your loss.
I like how it kind of goes around and you realize it's like a game where you go into the guild and there's all these like shopkeepers just kind of sitting around like vendors or whatever, and that you went into the logistics of like how that would work. I don't know. I thought that was
Oh yeah, that's an important thing. You've got to think about it. You know, not everyone in these high fantasy settings is going to be the adventurer. A lot of them are just going to be the guy who has to deal with the shit back at the office.
The supply chain, even fantasy universes can experience supply chain failure.
No, I really love that, and obviously, first, sorry about your loss and stuff, but
thank you.
I love that Dragon Slayer shit because I think one of the first characters I proposed for your Vianix game was like a bureaucrat, basically a Fey bureaucrat, and I love that that shit in the setting because it's so appropriate for that with the arcologies and the way like it's set up so that you don't necessarily have to go out and kill stuff to get to advance and shit. Just the way you pitched me the system of it, the system elements, not set up so it's like a killy, murder hobo type thing necessarily. But I love so you mentioned the surveillance footage, but somebody also put a thing with Dragon's Lair into the chat, and I just had to say it seems to me that that's perfect because like the act of fighting a dragon in like most fantasy settings and most things is like this grand epic type of thing where it's like, well, we're gonna have a whole party get together and maybe an army and they're gonna go fuck it up and it's gonna be a big grand battle. But to me, and like in Etherwell, it seems more like the game Dragon's Lair, where it's like it's a hair twitch, like, oops, I fucked up, I didn't get the joystick over there in time.
Yeah.
And they're like, oops, I'm dead. Like that's it. that
exactly,
seems like,
exactly.
That seems so perfect because it's so like it just shows like the fickleness, or it has that aura of like fickleness and like just like, you know, made one mistake, now you're fucked forever. You know? No, it's really cool, man. That was
All
good
right,
shit.
thank you. Yeah, I wanted to make sure to give you guys something a little more upbeat, a little more enjoyable. So
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, man. And Rudy,
Thank you.
don't mute your mic because you're up next. Oh, you already muted your mic. Wow.
Rip.
Fucked up the segue. Yeah.
Rip.
Uh,
Yeah, so I'm gonna read some from Pale Manipulator Music, which is my ongoing thing about a platoon of child soldiers who basically stole Necromancer's Spotify premium account, and now they're cursed forever to live out its songs. Yeah. So the first one I'm gonna read is from this site. It's all the way on the bottom. It's called It's All But Over the Minute She Starts. And all these songs are inspired by, or I mean, I'm sorry, all these stories are inspired by songs, real songs. They're on this playlist, and you can find the playlist at the top there. But this one is inspired by She's a Hot One by Luke Bryan, which is a great country song if you like stadium country, and it's fucking awesome. And shut up, stadium country is fucking awesome. Fuck you.
hey, I didn't even say anything. I was going to remain muted. I wasn't going to fight you about stadium country
Oh,
versus
Let me
like.
tell you, so if anyone wants to fight me about Luke Bryan or Thomas Rhett or fucking Jason, even all Jason Aldean, I'll defend. Fuck. But anyway, here it goes. It's all but over the minute she starts. November 13th. There are many cities yet to fall in the lower parts of the young, rich nation. During recent nights, we are outside of a place called Nashville, watching as the lights of buildings turn off like glowing dominoes being knocked over by the creator. This city, named for the gnashing of teeth, is a war production hub and strategically necessary, which means that it is a place where we will have to die or at least lose fingers. Looking on the bright side, we will not lose fingers to the cold. It is very warm here. Nashville contributes a resource called Stadium Country to the war effort of the remainder, the name the generals give to people and structures that we can shoot at without being punished. Epidemic to this area are the skeleton soldiers of Q Company, Long Division as they are known to us, since they are, as skeletons tend to be, forever animated. They mostly move when ordered to, or play possum in the streets while waiting for partisans to step on them. This morning, the rattle of bones and sabers is intense as Milton, the local political officer, is setting femurs and hip bones into motion. They are marching into a building and bringing out woman after woman and occasionally a man. We are viewing this from the rooftops, providing Overwatch and peanuts for the gallery. Josh is saying they are all part of aspiring. I ask if that is like a ring pop, and he says yes, with more choking hazard. Nissa uses my joke as an opportunity to give a boring explanation of how spies choke the life out of our war effort. There are 8 of them, Nissa says, counting. 8 plus the leader. Josh tries to follow along on his hands, but doesn't have enough digits. One of the women, the one with black dripping from her eyes, has a ringing phone. Milton removes it from the pocket of her jeans, looks at the call ID, then smashes it and yells something to the skeletons. They enter the building again and haul out 2 big cabinets. Milton tucks his lighter into the utility pocket of the woman's white t-shirt and says, "Light my cigarette." She looks at him. He repeats his command. She is trembling and is still reaching for Creator with her hands up. Don't shoot. A skeleton laughs, which sounds like really uncomfortable silence. She holds up the lighter to the cig, clicks it, then immediately drops it. Milton cracks up. It must be a trick lighter, Nissa says with a clap and a laugh. It has given her skin a tingle. As she is picking it up, Milton puts his boot into her head. A nearby skeleton fires a taser, and the alligator clips bite her arm. Chomp. She is dancing now. Thunder is rolling in, and I feel wet on my leg and other places. Milton begins to laugh like he is insane. He is laughing between increasingly powerful coughs are turning into guttural. He clutches his arm and mumbles, "Brace me," to a skelly. It obeys. The woman dances still, although her bladder is letting go. The gathered up partisans start pointing to each other frantically. Some weep and point at their leader, then at the building. Everyone is somewhat concerned looks, but Nissa is smiling. "Time for a number 8 riddle," Nissa chuckles, jostling my ribs. "What is 8 divided by 1? Josh crosses his fingers, trying to figure it out until he is cross-eyed and just cross. I shrug. "Still 8, Nissa says, but it divides cleanly. No remainder." And now I have another 3 to read here. This one's called About a Blizzard. And this is inspired by the song Water Whippin' Wizard by an artist called Riff Raff. About a Blizzard. July 25th. Water parks are legendary fun, and I can really not say anything against them. Today, I am saying little about myself because I am an elemental of the waves with the liquid good brain waves. These feet that I don't have are kicking in the deep end of this pool. These memories that I don't have are being sucked down drains only to re-enter the other side, filtered, with an impact that feels like a gentle massage for someone's back or lower parts. We are naked today. Clear water for clear progress is what a political officer is saying to us while we stood cocked in the swamp country, our troops taking frequent dips with the belly-paying gators and less frequently returning to the surface. The sight of the spiraling orange tower gave us enough get up to overrun the city, and this tower I have slid down it more than once now. Every splash coats my stomach with good slosh. Josh cries, "Anyone who speaks about the bush today walks the plank," as he sends poolside comrades into the breach with his foot. Splash. Loud music says swears and anatomy. Splash. I sling blue magic at Anne because I am a spellman who is all about whipping water. Splash. 2 bristly old uncles, regular officers in the regular army, give Moon and Nissa rides. And there's a lot of one-way saluting. The girls wear expressions that dart between good slosh, bad slosh, bathroom feeling, or sad slosh, an emotional baseball diamond with bases loaded, but water dilutes all other fluids. Midday, one of the general officers blows the whistle. We snap to attention and grip the side of the pool, the closest thing to a trench berm. He says, while laughter makes his painless belly rumble, "I fucking order you to do as much brown. This man is really gasping. do as much brown as you can. Fuck." Some are panicking. Are we to be sent again to chase and follow bullets? Then Josh dives into the deep end and starts splashing around. The general climbs to the top of the orange slide, jumps off, and does a cannonball. Total immersion, nose burn, coughing fit. A chill overtakes us. This witch doctor with 3 temporary starfish tattoos slices my upper arm. The starfish are on his chest where a general's stars would be. I realize the pool is red. Somebody shouts, "Hell is real," which is our battalion's motto. Something rubs me like itching powder being poured onto an itch. My pupils dilate. So next one is called Mixed Up Women. And this one, if I can find it. Sorry. This one is based on the song "Sheena's in a Goth Gang" by the Cramps. So Mixed Up Women for Garth. September 11th. One of the experiences that causes me much bone rattling and shaking and puppy dog trembling is beholding magicians in the midst of their job description. That is, bewitching things to the point of visible, audible enchantment. Sorcery, at its root, is like standing between a rocking band and a rapping one, eyes darting between the black and the white, while your body is gyrated by bass and electrified by the riffs of devil guitar. On this individual night, the witch doctor is asking for volunteers. A renegade sorcerer has been caught digging up the graveyard of this fallen city. This is obviously not to be allowed. There are rumored to be albinos buried there, so to do this is to weaken our witch readiness. This is obviously not to be allowed. I have peed myself while raising my hand. I am not volunteering, for I am not an activist or a communard. This is contract work that between you and me and the witch doctor could yield good reward. If we are holding her, this sorcerer, for more than 1 month's time, you can have some of her flow, the witch doctor has been telling me. Also, I will spot you a soccer ball for your efforts. The natural juices of women, I am assured, are vital and dangerous. A bastard who was dirty once talked of wicked women putting these into stew. An enchanted stew is something I would savor. Any stew, really. We move on this sorcerer after the checkpoints have been set up in the hills. We plod towards her crypt haven with fearful courage. We destroy all stoplights, for it is rumored that the uncanny magnetism of albino bones can change their readings, and we do not want to send mixed signals. The graveyard is dark, and rebellious shadows juke our flashlights. We are focused on subduing them, but the witch doctor says, "Stay ready." Someone says, "Movement," and I am training my rifle as if it were a dragon. The witch doctor's hand pushes the barrel towards the dirt, and his other one goes to his lips. Shh. But he has only 2 hands. Fire is let loose, hell follows with it. We are reprimanded for our twitch response. But twitch is something you cannot spell without witch, is what Nissa is arguing defensively. I'll take her word for it. The witch doctor uncrooks the curvature of his posture to slap her upside the head, then crouches over the corpse of the sorcerer, who has played tag and lost against many 7.62s. Her lips are blackened. She wears checkered trousers and netted leggings. Like a SoundCloud rapper, her flow ability is in question. The game of soccer looks more beautiful than ever. And this last one here is called He Got Early Warning. And it's based on a song by a group you might have heard of called the Beatles. The song is called Come Together. He got early warning. November 22nd. It is today that will live in infamy, for it is the day where all witch doctors and witch lawyers are having a seance with the souls of the dead. They are trying to decide which witch will come to be the ruler over the skeletons in this area. Skeletons are useful, but they are also stupid. If I were an animal in the ocean floating between meals and not really doing much anything, I would not need a skeleton. Skeletons need muscle to do their work. Whether it is my muscle or the strength of sorcery directing a bone to move is irrelevant. Boy power and girl power are the same as magic power in that way. All power is inferior to the power of the big one, however. In these days, in which we are nearest to victory, sorcerers like the witch doctor are muscles in the big one's body, moving her bones around so that her mind can do other tasks. They are the solidity giving tension in her pants, like the lyrics from that song about a peeping Tom by those Western boys who flee from Fallout. But the spirit world, where witch power comes from, is a democracy, a Western farce. This is why it is often said that the spirits are tricksters, I guess. The spirits must choose the witch doctor who is most fit to lead. Due to this, there is, once every crescent moon, the need to meet, greet, and bribe the spirits into favor. This is all sorcerer politics, gibberish to me. I know of only one fact. Among his peers, our witch doctor is known as Merv, which is a piece of ordnance that can bring great suffering but also relief. The name conjures fear and respect. It is a short name that buzzes your teeth when you say it. It is apparently a name that rests nicely on a sign, something I cannot say for sure as I am not in the business of reading signs or anything else. Nissa is now in the business of creating signs for the Witch Doctors campaign, a word that has previously only held meaning to me when used like, we must be in the bush soon, we're on campaign, or only a faggot plays campaign, multiplayer is where the prestige is. The Witch Doctor is campaigning against various adversaries, other witches mostly, and some pretenders who believe that the way they carry a big stick makes them eligible to command magics. Josh is today joking with me about a woman, one of the crook-waving pretenders mentioned, who now sits buried up to her neck in red dirt near the center of camp. She has been many hours and countless minutes saying, Merv is a non-factor, a nothing man, nowhere man. All of his doings are lies, sleights of hand, purest applesauce. Even now, as the ground hugs her body, she bellows on by night and by day. She is a crone from a faraway camp, an invasive weed now planted among us. I know very little about her. It is said that her underhanded attempts to use weapons of steel, foolish, against the Witch Doctor's person were quickly put down by his staff. Here the meaning of staff is duplicitous, but I believe mostly that he gave her thick head a wrapping, foiling her plans as if they were shiny cardboard depictions of fate wizards. I have made it a point to spit in this woman's mouth every time that I can. The Witch Doctor's campaign and the incantation is shoot me, repeated 4 times, and he has made it very clear that he will use our skeletons to the best of his ability if he is favored by the spirits. We are expecting him to win as ghosts, similar to boys and girls, are easily dazzled by bravado and short bursts of repetition. It is late into the night when I catch Anne tearfully praying for the Witch Doctor's success. He hears her weeping and comes into the tent. Holding her hand in his, he does inspirational math and creates confidence and changes the tears to mostly joyful ones. He says, do like you are making a fist, which she does in the best manner she can. As he uncurls each of her fingers, he counts, smiling at her with his teeth, which are pointed in a line like soldiers in the field, straighter than George. Flickering between here and the spirit realm, he says, 1 and 1 and 1 is 3. Got to be good looking because he's so hard to see. And that's it. That's the last one.
Man, oh man, these are great. These are great. You got me with the end of that last one. Because a lot of the times, like, the song never drops in, right? The song is sort of purely inspirational. You see hints of it throughout. So the fact that the song actually drops into that last one after you've been after you've gotten wrapped into the story to the point that you've forgotten even the song that it was based on is, I think, a nice touch. The one I really loved from this batch, though, is the swimming one, because because it plays with a trope that you often see in war movies, right? Which is like the R&R respite kind of scene, right? And you see this too even in movies about child soldiers and stuff, where like there's this moment where you're reminded that they're children, right? And even in war movies, often it's like this moment where you're reminded of like not only the humanity of the soldier, but their kind of youthful innocence, because these are usually like, 18, 19-year-old guys being fed into the meat grinder.
Right,
And so you get us feeling like it's one of those scenes, right? But you do so much to subvert the expectations of a scene like that without losing any of the like real emotion of it, right? Because you still like feel that these are children, playing around at the pool, right? But there's so much insidious like shit in the subtext of what's going on there, right? And then the brown scene at the end where it becomes so dark so fast over the course of like 3 or 4 sentences is fucking incredible. And it does it in a way that doesn't, like, a lot of times war media will pull that trick where they'll like put you in the R&R scene and then pull you out with a moment of sudden violence. But usually there's a real like not just suddenness, but a real sudden kind of contrast there, right? Here though, like the way the like moment of like childhood like joy is like consumed by the like darkness of the moment without being lost. Like the fact that the witch doctor has the temporary tattoos, right? The temporary tattoos where the general stars would be, like you never lose the like sight of the fact that these are children, and and it never ceases to be like a kind of play, even as it becomes really like insidious and really dark. It's just that one's just really fucking good.
Cool. Yeah.
But yeah, man.
The last one there, the last one I read, the Come Together one of Beatles shit, was inspired kind of also by, I guess that song was meant to be used in Timothy Leary's Run for Governor.
Really?
Come Together,
I had
yeah,
no idea.
but you couldn't use it. John Lennon wrote it for that, but he wound up saying like, "No, don't even use that because it's just gibberish." He said it's gobbledygook. That's kind of what it was supposed to be. Yeah.
That's
So yeah,
great.
thanks for letting me.
Oh, the other thing. Oh,
Yeah, hell yeah.
Here we go.
Fuck yeah.
Did they just leave?
I guess they
What
just left
happened
for
there?
real.
I went to.
Oh, hey.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. But one other thing, man, long division is so fucking perfect. Like, because the long division thing where the skeletons are called long division because they're like in it forever, right? Because they're going to be serving till the end of time because they don't die. The way that's just another one of those moments where you get at the childishness of it all in a way that's also like really dark and really nasty and really funny. So I would that moment got me.
Real quick, I just want to say that is a reference to Salo, that whole scene, the 8 story. You know, it's the I think it's the president or whatever in Salo, where he tells like the number 8 story or whatever, and he's like, yeah, you know, what's 2 easy? Like the guy is screaming like 2 times 4 or something. He's like 8 came the reply. So that was where I got that idea from.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of a reference to that.
Gotcha, man. All right, thank you, man. That was awesome. And Derek is up next.
Is this like really loud?
No, you're good.
No, you sound good.
Clear.
I'm gonna read a poem tonight. I read this in December of 2020 here, and that's when I wrote it. I gotta find it. And I was gonna read all of the Book of Disquiet, and then I'll tell you what happened with that. I'm not a poet at all. I think I've only read or written rather 3 or 4, and each one I just try to blatantly rip off another poet, and so I did that with this one. But that's kind of fun too, because since no one reads poetry, you know, for the most part, you can kind of rip it off, and most people won't even know, and then they'll be like, "Man, you're really good at this," and you're like, "Yeah." So, Fernando Pessoa, I am scared to commune with you. I study your life, Fernando Pessoa. I listen to the stories. I imagine your loneliness. Fernando Pessoa, did you really leave an entire literature in a trunk? I have overheard the following, Fernando, and I demand to know its truth. The Book of Disquiet will rewire your brain. The Book of Disquiet is unsettling. The Book of Disquiet is incomplete. There are still fragments being found in a trunk which may one day be included in the Book of Disquiet. You wrote, I know not what tomorrow will bring, on a pad or in a journal at the Hospital de Saint-Louis, November 29th, 1935, and died the next day, aged 47, in the evening, of course, having drank yourself to death. Fernando Pessoa does not exist for existing too much. I have not read you, Fernando Pessoa, I am afraid. Fernando Pessoa, tell me the truth, goddammit. Are you writing the book of disquiet from your grave? Is it such a terrible winter, Fernando? What with all this death and isolation to finally dance with you? We have been avoiding each other, Fernando Pessoa. I believe you have something for me, Fernando Pessoa. I shall come in the evening, of course, to collect. Literature is a conversation with ghosts. It is the occult. The secret society is literature, and literature comes to us as a warning from the dead, written in absolute fear while we are alive. Fernando Pessoa, I believe you have something which belongs to me. Are you going to hurt me, Fernando Pessoa? I am a happy man. This is an entirely different century. I have children and a wife. I cannot abandon them for you or your suggestions. They have excellent medications now, Fernando. I must not be taken on your ship. I resign myself to you in protest. I've never read your work, Fernando Pessoa. You visited me on a stretch of road many years ago and demanded I cease. I disobeyed you, Fernando Pessoa, and was that you in the window of the Whitaker Psychiatric Residential Treatment Facility? I shunned you twice, no, 1,000 times. I've never written a poem. I don't know how. I do not have the luxury of 75 assistants. I quit drinking when my son was born, Fernando Pessoa, because I lived with my father once. Fernando Pessoa, I swear to whatever ether exists from which you continue to write your little scraps of paper that if you hurt me or my family, I will fucking hunt you down in that cosmic expanse. I've had my eye trained on you since birth, since before, since the birth of something else, something terrible, like a secret, not a secret exactly, but something unknown, which I'm told you know something about. I've understand you've written me a poem, perhaps. And then, so I never ended up, I read about a third of it. And find it to be obviously beautiful and, you know, haunting and wonderful. But I have this, now I've developed this sort of new idea that there's some books like this that, you know, you should not finish. There's something about the finality of it that feels like the finality. If he's still writing it, right, then why do I have to, you know, I'll wait until he's done. I'll read a quick one. And this one actually is, when I reread 4 of my favorites today to decide which one I'd read, I thought of William on this one. And I think you like that. So I'll dedicate this one to William. This is from, this is number 12. So this is 1913, very short. Number 12 of the first phase of the Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa. This is translated from the Portuguese by Margaret Jewel Costa. There are lots of interesting and contradictory thoughts about this translation. This is one of my favorite things about poetry. And in fact, I prefer poetry in translation for this reason, because since no one knows how to read poetry anyway, or at least I don't, and so then I extrapolate, the fact that it then has to go through another set of eyes, another reader, writer to get to you. I love that there exists that between. This is number 12. It is noble to be timid, illustrious not to know what to do, great to have no talent for living. Only tedium, which is a form of aloofness, and art, which is a form of scorn, gild our life with a semblance of contentment. The will of the wisps given off by our own putrefying selves do at least provide light in our darkness. Only unhappiness raises us up, and the tedium we draw from that unhappiness is as erotic as being the descendant of distant heroes. I am a well of gestures never made, of words never thought or spoken, of dreams I forgot to dream until the end. I am the ruins of buildings that were never more than ruins, that someone in the midst of building them grew tired of even wanting to build. Let us not forget to hate those who take pleasure in things, because they take pleasure in them, to despise those who are happy, because we ourselves do not know how to be happy. that false scorn, that feeble hatred are merely the rough, grubby pedestal on which we raise up, haughty and unique, the statue to our tedium, a dark shape on whose face glows an impenetrable, darkly secret smile. Blessed are those who do not entrust their lives to anyone.
Derek, you know what's you know what's funny is I started the Book of Disquiet at one point too and never finished it too. It really is one of those books that you can't finish. There's something there. I don't know. Maybe it's not wanting the finality of finishing it, or maybe it's because of how it's structured. I don't know. I have no idea, but it's the same thing. And it wasn't like one of those books that I put down because I didn't like it. I loved every fucking word that I read, and I only made it like a quarter of the way through, or maybe less than that, you know? But this makes me want to pick it up and read it again because
It made me want to today too. I was reading through them, and I think I'll read some more this winter. But I do think there's something, like I said, they keep finding scraps of paper of it, that like,
yeah.
I don't know, I'm going to take my time too. And it seems at least it's repetitive, in a good way, but it also, while it's dated, other than that, it seems haphazard in construction in terms of, the order that it's being told.
Yeah. And I think that's wonderful,
Like,
right?
yeah, like exactly. So I haven't done the thing yet where you just open to a random page, because I'm still like so precious about books, like that I think there's some secret like mystery to doing it in the order, but
Right.
I'm not even entirely sure that that's not the case, that you don't have to do that. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about your poem though, because I think you've read it once before, but it still rocks. It's so good. I love poems that are about conversation with other artists, right? And I love this one because there are a lot of like tribute poems right out there that are like done in the style of another poem, that are done as like an homage to another poet. And those are often like they're deeply sentimental and they're honestly felt, right? But this is one you are scared to fucking death of the ghost of this guy, right? And you don't often see this kind of homage where like the dead poet becomes this living, terrifying presence in the poem. Where like the poem isn't just haunted by the idea of this guy or by like the ghost of his style or whatever. It's haunted by the actual fucking murderous ghost of the author, right? And it makes it feel so present, right? So immediate and so visceral. And it's so good. And Derek, I will give you, I think, like one of the highest compliments I can give, which is while you were reading first your poem and then the Pessoa Book of Disquiet thing, I had the thought that like, damn, I need to start writing again.
Then it has all been worth it. That is the highest.
It's hard to make me want to write. I've become so like bitter and calcified and by the thought of like the act of writing that to get that out of me is anyway, Derek, that rocked. Thank you, man.
Hey. Lights in the box. Is that this one? The lights.
Okay. Up next is Paige and then Grapes.
Paige, I think you're muted.
Oh, is she reading?
Oops,
Paige, you're muted.
You're still muted.
If you're trying to read, you're muted. Oh no. I don't have her video up. Is she reading? Or they wrote it looks like they're walking around the apartment. I'm not sure.
It looks like they're trying to figure out what's going on with the tech difficulties.
Hey,
Hey.
Hey, yeah, we hear you now.
okay. Unmute fixed.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm on Michelle's phone, not my own phone. That's
No,
why.
that's okay. That's okay.
Okay, so I have a lot of poems, but I have two I've chosen to read that I think are some of my better ones. And I'll start with this one, which is it was a memorial poem to my dead ex-boyfriend who died, and I wrote it actually at his he had a Zoom funeral because it was during COVID. And anyway, this is the poem. In case you should outlive me, the confinement of the body, may the luster of the stars and their sparkling firmament, the pain so exquisite, so excruciating, speak a language not so far in translation from my own mother tongue. In the cells of the flesh does the prisoner reside, tin cup clanging against steel bars, so that through them you may even hear the peculiar idiosyncrasies of cadence and speech. The skin was always stretched too thin. A pinprick always bled like a bullet wound. That remind you of me, a photo negative of my essence. Do you understand what I mean when I say that even the wind itself was overwhelming? The way it washed against my arms and hair? If some fine day its song should finally untether me and untangle all these twisted knots, in the labyrinth of intestines, the hollow of the gut is where the emptiness abides. May the taut violin string of my tortured soul and its vibrations echo on throughout the ages. What I mean is that the world itself was always way too much. Each sensation a supernova, each emotion an explosion. Long past the final crescendo of melodic ecstasy, and that moment where music melts back into silence. Like a warden with his keys always clanging against his belt, death is always there with its promise of freedom, its ability to unlock the cell doors. In that moment where sound and silence become indistinguishable, and the sunlight itself surrenders to a world where all colors bleed to black, and organic matter sorts itself back into atoms, where the veil between worlds dissolves like sugar on the tongue. May you turn your face up towards the howling wind and find me there waiting for you. I don't know if you want me to read one more.
Absolutely, yeah. You said you had two. Definitely read both.
Okay. This one doesn't really have a name or anything. It was just about I lived in San Francisco during COVID, and it's mostly about San Francisco and a lot of other things actually. The American century has finally ended, and California crests like a wave. Idyll of oasis, eternal and ever forming. Paradise of golden green. A dream of invincible sunshine has intertwined itself between your sacred syllables and commingled with your cliffs and beaches, once and forever married to your name. But all of a sudden, a fatalistic fog descends out from the heavens and spreads its wings out over San Francisco City. Its fault lines have the rest of us cracked up too. Tweakers mumble mantras once reserved for sacred shamans, and a priestess, a prophet, and a Vestal virgin dance to an unsung chorus in every alley or street corner, writhing like snake handlers and speaking in tongues. Well suited for the apocalypse are we. The Golden Gate Bridge spans the ridge of waves. and tempestuous sirens beckon out from below, calling out to those travelers who have sailed much too far from sanity's shoreline, or have asked far too many questions of God or the devil, and heard only echoes in their wake. Maybe only the dead can hear the music. Their answers lie far beyond us, like an island in the distance, almost close enough to touch, but much too far to swim. You can waste a lifetime squinting out towards the horizon, like a rabbit locked in the jaw of a mountain lion, muscles tensed and jaw quiver, saliva roiling up like sea foam, ready and just waiting to pounce. Our deaths haunt us in our dreams. Its roar awaits us. And our youth is an ember, all too easily burnt to ashes. And what's left in return is a wet bag of weary bones and worn out skin. Warily trudging alone in the transmigration of the bardo. Oh, we unholy spawn of the century of genocide, how the sword of Damocles hangs down over our heads, and the long, unforgiving arc of history bends not in our favor. Our weary footsteps can go no farther. Humans have built bridges and cities and spaceships galore, but still we find ourselves standing on the shoreline in the agony of indecision, claw-marked by the ravenous torture of the hungry ghosts of our souls unsettled. How shall we return now to the homeland, to the warmth of womb and heart and home? The waves crashing against the California coastline are our only comfort now, and its ceaseless pulse is enough to drive a sane man to suicide. Whatever shall we do? We who by God or fate or the cruel agony of evolution are uniquely able to see and recognize and truly know the fate which awaits us. I'm almost done. As the telomeres tick down the days till your paper thin and wasted, and gray ghostly shadows shall haunt your peripherals like ships just cresting the horizon, and we ache over the emptiness within, may as well toss out our pebbles into the ceaseless churning cauldron of the sea.
Those were beautiful, Paige. Just like mythic, right? You do something here that's really wonderful, and that I think a lot of legitimately like really great poetry does, which is that you like take the present, but you find connective tissue to attach it to the past, right? To mythology and to folklore and to like the like vast like expanse of human experience. And you do it in a way here that never loses sight of the present either, right? Like it never feels like the subjects of these poems, like whether it's COVID or the death of your boyfriend, like the subjects never fully escape into the greater expanse of like illusion and reference and into the greater expanse of the past. They remain there, but you like place them in this wonderful, like once again, like mythic context. It's just gorgeous. It's just wonderfully done. And you had one line in that first poem: the veil between worlds dissolves like sugar on the tongue. Oh my God, that's such a good fucking line. It's just a remarkable line. And it's funny because sometimes, and I mention this like frequently, but sometimes these weird kind of unplanned themes emerge over the course of A Misery Loves Company, and it's becoming really clear that tonight is like about death and ghosts, right? And I love yeah, and I love how that both of these poems handle death, because death can be like tricky to capture in poetry because there can be a tendency to over romanticize it and take the sting out of it. But there can also be a tendency to reduce it to something that's simply terrible and simply crass. And you walk an incredible tightrope in these poems where death becomes something that is legitimately beautiful, but that never like loses the potency of its reality. Anyway, these are great poems, Paige. Thank you so much for sharing.
Okay, are you the guy that I sent my Twitter to?
Huh?
I sent my Twitter to someone in the.
Oh
in
no,
the-
that was me.
Oh,
I
okay.
added you. I added you on Misery Tourism account.
with other poets. So if you want to add me on Twitter or whatever, I put it in the chat, or you put it in the chat, right? Okay.
Cool.
Cool, yeah.
You should, if you send it directly to Rudy, you should also put it in the everyone chat so everyone can see it and follow you if you want. Whereas, as long as Twitter still exists, anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So if I put my Twitter, I can see you guys' Twitters as well.
Yeah, if you put it in the chat, anyone who follows you, you'll be able to see, and also other people can. If everyone wants to just dump, most of us know each other, but anyone who wants to dump your Twitter in the chat, you can do so. Now I'll put mine in there.
Okay. Okay. So my friend Michelle, I guess, was going to speak next.
Yeah, Grapes. Michelle, you're up next.
She's
Thank you, Paige.
she wrote this on the fly, so gotta give her credit for that.
Hey, yeah, I wrote some stuff and it was on the spot. I didn't really get to go through my archive tonight. I don't have my stuff with me and I don't really have it online, so I couldn't access it. But anyway, here's a poem titled Maddie. Maddie Ruthless. Have you heard of her? She DJs at Santa Salsa some Tuesdays. She said nice things about me to our mutuals. Anyway, the doggy sitting on me feels nice. I like their warmth. And if you saw earlier, there was a doggy sitting on me, so it was like authentically true to the moment.
It was fine.
And it was a moment, in fact, so I kept going off that. So here's one titled A Doggy Sits in My Lap. And it feels nice. She has a beautiful vest of gutter patches on its back. It's a cute dog, not my dog, but Paige's dog. We just met. We're friends, Paige and I. We've just met, yet the poetry power moves us. Thank you.
Grapes. I think it was a really good choice to present poetry that was written like in the moment, because so much of your poetry that you've read feels like it embodies a moment, right? Like so much of the poetry that you read feels like, not like it was written in a moment, not like it was written quickly, but like it was written to capture the essence of a moment in time, right? And these poems do that like perfectly as well. Like you have a really good like sense of the tension between like the profound and the banal as they exist in any given moment in history, and the way that we never like totally lose our grip on either, like the fact that any moment could have incredible emotional power, or could just be this thing that washes by in a fog of like details, right? And I love the first poem because you get at like how little like we often know each other, and how we can still have like this kind of warm affection for a human being based on just like these very superficial experiences. Anyway, as usual, Michelle, good shit. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Jesse's up next.
I'm going to read 3 poems from my book that was just published a week and a half ago or so. And the first poem I'm going to read was actually published by Misery Tourism some months ago. And it's here, let me get the light a little more. It's called Fugitive Completeness. Recall the large collection of X-rated magazines passed around your dorm by that curious freshman who had, with a Sharpie, carefully blacked out every hard-on, and then eventually each man's whole body. So finally the women appeared to fuck with man voids, to suck page after page of absent dicks. Each invisible man's presence could only be inferred, not from limbs or hair or wrinkled sheets, but from his female partner's corrugated, pleasure-punctuated eyebrows, which took on a distressed symmetry whenever she was in Venerian mirth. The intertwining bodies in the pictures were haunted by a kid's fears of the gay avalanche that falls in through the eye's pupil. Obliterate the man and keep the woman. The performance artist Nero, envious of prior winners of Rome's oratory contests, ordered each copy of their statues to be defaced, then hurled into public lavatories. Soviet ministers out of favor were shot and edited out of group photos like a pockmark, leaving behind outlines to be filled in with fictional gray foliage by a team of terrified forgers. The disfigured, the amputees, the ruins swim up at you from a clouded over seafloor of art history. Extrapolate all above the ankles, since the feet inside the display case are all you have left. Stripe out a line of cocaine for the Sphinx to vacuum up her missing nose. Handcuff the Venus de Milo. And this, I'm going to read 3 poems. This is the second one. It's called The Hospital of Blocked Faces. While playing Richard II, watch Jacoby's eyes. What he looks at forms a geometry. Within each pause, the actor shifts his gaze, sometimes 4 or 5 times, and challenges each character on the stage, in some sequence itself significant. You can tell who holds the power by the silent network of glances around the break room table or the campfire while some unwitting member of the tribe wags his tongue. We quickly learned that patient S had to have a direct sight line onto everybody's face in whatever room she was in. On her first day, she came into the common room and scanned our group in agitation, then ordered me to move my head out of the way. My head, as I did the seashell jigsaw puzzle, was blocking patient F from her gaze. I figured it was a phobia thing, a PTSD thing, checking to see if she were safe from all angles. A few days later, I was in the dark lounge alone, watching TV quite late at night, when she shambled into the room like a black bear and sat down in front of me facing the screen. The nurses were nowhere near us. I was spooked. Danger was brushing close. But I did not want to get up and leave because I felt guilty for how we had ostracized her earlier. S wanted to watch Xanadu. She brought her own VHS copy with her, and Whisper sang along with the opening theme, swayed and gestured big and flirty like a dance squad 9-year-old trying to be 22. Then I fell from fear into sympathy. I watched her get lost in her glossy laser fantasy. Do you like to roller skate? I finally asked her. She turned around in her chair to answer me. I have chills right now typing this out. And she reached out along the beam of light that connected both our eyes and slowly swiped at me with one paw. as if she were trying to wipe my face off my skull forever. And this last poem is much shorter. It's called Vigil. Vigil. The slope of denial tapers off. That state of mind the family's in when the daughter won't come home. A reporter's passive voice declares her missing, implies she may be nothing but an object now. Gas station footage has been seized. The knife has come back positive. The drowning family puts out a statement. She's our stubborn little girl. She's a fighter. And the toast and orange juice crowd senses something slope away. They tumble to what the family can't. Unbearable to watch the father's quick gasp of hope back beneath the facts. Within a crowded park at twilight, her grade school siblings build a shield around their mother out of pity flames. And those are my 3 poems.
Jesse, oh my God. First of all, put the link to where people can order the book in the chat.
Okay.
So that then Rudy can also tweet out the link to where people can order the book.
All right. Give me a second.
Sure. Sorry. No hurry. But I do want to, Jesse, oh my God. I love your poems and I love your descriptions. I love the language you use. And I know this seems like incredibly like crass and obvious for me to say that, but what I'm trying to communicate is nothing in these 3 poems is communicated in a way that feels pat or that feels obvious. It feels like you are fighting against the reader's it feels like you're fighting against the reader's apathy with language, right? Like you're presenting these scenarios to the reader, and it's almost as if you anticipate like the reader like looking for cliches, or you anticipate the reader expecting the way the story is going to be told, expecting the way the poem is going to be framed, the emotions that are going to come from it, and like you're like each and every and every time you, on every line, every word choice, every allusion subverts the reader's expectations, and every word choice, every allusion is so much richer than the one you'd expect, right? Like the Fugitive Completeness poem, the one that we published, it's so rich because it delivers everything you think you're going to get from that kind of coming of age poem, right? It's really funny. It's hilariously funny, but beyond being like this funny moment from adolescence, it's so rich, like it takes you back into history, and by the end, like it becomes like this larger like insight into the human urge towards censorship, right? And into toward the rich history of like defacement of beauty, right? In a way that is just fucking wild. And the Vigil poem, like fucking the toast and orange juice crowd, like there were 100 like less evocative ways to say that, right? But instead you like offer this incredibly evocative turn of phrase that also immediately communicates who these people are, right? and even like simple things like the reporter's passive voice, like you get at I don't know, it's just that poem is just really psychologically rich, and it gets at the ways that we like deceive ourselves in the face of tragedy and in the anticipation of tragedy, and it gets at that without ever saying directly in a like pat simple way what anyone is feeling or what anyone is experiencing. These are just very rich poems, and I'm rambling at this point, but they're very good, Jesse. They're very fucking good.
Thank you, William, and thank you for people listening. And I like that the first poem was published by Misery Tourism, because I read this poem last night at a reading, and I feel like the sexual humor about pornographic magazines that have been like blacked out with a Sharpie didn't go over as well there as it would like here,
Yeah.
So
Really?
might
Oh
be-
my God. I don't know. I was losing it when I read that poem for the first time. I remember Rudy and I talking about it.
but
But
thank you, everybody.
yeah, thank you, Jesse. And definitely check out Jesse's book, Handcuffing the Venus de Milo. Anyway, check out Jesse's book if you're watching this on YouTube. The link is in the Twitter thread. Anyway, up next is Mark.
Hey, good evening.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, I'm actually here and I'm not in work the next day for once, William, so I'm actually up late. I was so fucking excited earlier when Derek started to read his Pessoa poems and read from the Book of Disquiet, because I was like, oh, fuck what I was going to read. I have Pessoa poems, so that's what's going to happen. I have like 4 things, 2 of them are really short. Again, I have not finished the Book of Disquiet either, and I don't think I ever will. But this is kind of a draft. I'm not sure if it's finished. I think it might be. And it's opening with a quote from the Book of Disquiet. And the quote is, "Could it think the heart would stop beating?" And the poem is called Catastrophonic. Would we have lasted if my brain didn't catastrophize us? My pulse in 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, a relentless floor filler insisting this next question might fix me. This morning, I checked the door in 4 counts of 8, 4 counts of 8 twice because I was tired. And writing this, I realized that it's the same thing, the sound of an echo, alive. Fernando, could it think the heart would just beat faster? This next one, I became obsessed. I read his collected poems, and one of his heteronyms, The Sheep Herder, Alberto Cairo. I had great notions, and I translated 4 of his poems, which was a nightmare, but really interesting to do, and I've never done it since because it's really fucking difficult. So this is my translation of a Pessoa poem, and it's from The Keeper of Sheep by Alberto Cairo. No, I don't bring in rhymes. Sometimes there are twin trees flanking each other. I reason and I write down the flowers' hues, but with less perfection than my writing allows, because I fall short of the modest divinity required to exist outside my skin. I see and I am moved. I'm moved by the running water cascading when the floor slopes, and then my poetry is as innate as a gathering wind. So then the last of the 3 Pessoa poems is, I then was like, I wrote my own Pessoa poem in his voice, like you were saying, Derek, about kind of like ripping off homaging. So this is there's a park in Dublin called Phoenix Park, which is the biggest park in Europe. So it's Alberto Cairo in Phoenix Park. Church bells ring out. This Sunday, my last memory was of writing about how he had changed me, how love, despite itself, had deepened my sight. The words meant little since we were reduced to a footnote. Is this my punishment? A park full of nature, full of people, a whole city walking. They can only move through it. They cannot hold nature despite how they try, despite boys picking up fallen branches, dogs snuffling through autumn leaves. Why am I here? I had tried to supersede objectivity, to fashion a narrative out of my life, our life, which should have been enough, which was enough. This is not my time. This is not my city. I am alone, walking under the tree's canopy, holding fast that there is a reason for everything. That a true pair of eyes like mine would finally see these trees, this grass, this life for exactly what it is and nothing more. So that's the last of the Pessoa poems. And then the poem I actually came on to read, I like to read the dark poems from Mystery Tourism, is a recent poem. And it's called Dead Body on the Sidewalk. It's the lack of surprise. Did you see him? A long, flat streak of skin, someone's coat sacrificed, thrown over his face, chest, clothed legs sprouting from old suede. A man, all briefcase spits. Yeah, he's sleeping, annoyed at being stopped by me. My colleague is at the end of the block asking others if they saw. Well, first, if you saw him, and then to combat the blank looks, they specify the body. They have to specify outside the WeWork on the corner, their blank looks. They didn't. See? We pool our disappointing results over coffee. I can't keep doing this. We don't have a choice. The police officer tells us to stop ringing. We wait behind the diner window 4 fucking hours. This wasn't what I thought our relationship would be. Neighborhood watch. As the results validate themselves with a glassy-eyed selfishness, a woman starts to cry, unable to. A businessman knocks into her, a rumble of swearing, and she walks on, jolted out of it, her hand gripping her phone, knuckles white. If the police officer hadn't told us how many people. I reach across your idly made salt sculptures to take your hand. You pull away, making sure to check your watch in one fluid movement, as if time were the only reason. There's no point both of us wasting it. You go. I'll wait. Thank you.
Mark, holy shit, those were phenomenal. I'm going to start with the last poem, and I'm going to go back to some of the Pessoa stuff, but that, oh my God, that last poem is incredible.
Thank
The
you.
way it's fucking structured, like, it's like the fucking duality of the way it's structured, right? Like the incredible, like, coldness of that first half of the poem, the incredible, like, the just complete disinterest of the people on the street, right? And the way the body is described is reduced to like what I think I put, like a long flat streak of skin, or
yeah,
like, and just all of that, like just the callousness of that first half of the poem, and then the incredible deep, like, emotional intimacy of the second half. Like the first half of the poem, like the most important thing that you could see in the world is sitting there in front of these people, and they're completely callous and cold to it. Like death is right fucking there, right? And there's this shrugging indifference to it. And then the second half of the poem, this small conversation is given so much weight and so much power, and has such a sense of intimacy to it, that like the way the two halves fold together, it's beautiful. It's fucking effortless. It's really fucking good, Mark. I think
thank you.
It's yeah, oh my God. The Pessoa poems are great too. Like your translation of the second poem, it's gorgeously done. I like the modest divinity required to exist. That is just such, and I understand that Pessoa's language, but it's also not his language, right? Because so much of the act of translation is choosing, is considering your options and thinking about what will retain the beauty of the original while also retaining the meaning of the original without it becoming a totally original work, right?
There's just so many meanings. Like I translated each word, each phrase, and then each line as well. And like you'd have 15 different meanings. And you're just sitting there pouring through them all.
Right, and then refining it into something that feels complete, right? And it's so good. And it's funny that none of us, you, me, and Derek, have actually finished the Book of Disquiet. I think there is something about it that it's resistant to being finished. I don't know.
Much like him and his like other lives that, strange odd fish of a man, but brilliant.
Yeah. But thank you so much, Mark. Those were
No
beautiful.
problem. Thank you.
Last up tonight is Rosebud.
Hi guys.
Oh, it's you.
Greco, welcome back.
Hey man.
Hi. Hi. Yeah, sorry. I just joined like this because I joined a couple of times and I'm usually too tired to stay and chat and everything. So it's yeah, I have two very stupid poems to read, and I'll share the link. Just give me a second. Yeah. So the first one is called. The first one is called My Soap Opera Boss is a horse-faced basic bitch with a lame brain and should be put down. She traveled across the sea of pussies to get to her position, poised on the mountain of corporate clitoris. My head writer tells me she hates my hometown, as the last resort to get me to reply my way towards sacking. She wears a stupid baseball cap, indoors, plus she's illiterate. Her tongue is only effective when paired with pussy, yet she uses it to demean me angry when I don't feel or look demeaned. Pancakes her every breakfast, and if we stay over time, her every supper. Yet she's not a mare. I'm not envious. I'm not looking to get her money, power, and pussy. She can have it all, and admittedly, she deserves more pussy than me. This poem is written at work, lazy and uninspiring. Head writer's writing, charisma overflowed into it. If only it could have been written in the presence of her pussy handling. So that's the first one, and the second one is called I just found this poem by accident, thanks. It's summer. I'm locked in Zagreb. My friend sent me a picture of Ovid in his lap. He's in Igrane, seducing tourists. I ask him where's Srđan, also called Quaso, my childhood friend, and he replies with a voice message. Srđan wasn't well these days. He was like fucked up again, but this time in a bad way. Like he yells at his kid for no reason, sends him home when all the kids are playing. He drunk on the fisherman's night. Instead of hanging out with his lad, he chases him off home. All the kids are out silent, so there was like some fucked up shit, like Iko pulled out a machete on him, like where did he pull that machete from? I have no idea. This guy grabbed his machete and Quaso decked him with a bottle, bashed his head. Well, classic, you know. He hasn't been well these days. Yeah, definitely. If you know anything similar to Ovid, just send it. So that's, yeah.
First of all, welcome back, man. Welcome back.
Yeah. Thanks.
These are great. These are great, man. You had me at the title of the first one because I I think Rudy said legendary title, and that basically sums it up. But so I like pretty much every human being alive have had at least one boss who I really fucking hated, right? And you
Yeah.
so perfectly capture the just venom that you feel towards this person, right? And like the irrationality of the venom, just because I know I had a boss back before I left my previous job who I just hated. I could not stand this guy. And just like the invective, just the like sheer like venomous like obscenity that would stream out of my mouth whenever I was like talking to Rudy about this stuff, just like completely like divorced from like anything that had like any specific like material complaint, right? Just this ability to look at a human being and reduce them to fucking toad, and you do it so fucking well in this poem. You get at like the like sheer like irrationality of that kind of hatred, and though also at the sense that there's some like legitimate grievance like underneath it all, right? And the second one, so I love the way you bookend the second one with Ovid and then back to Ovid, right? It's almost like this weird thing where you set expectations and then you totally throw those expectations out the window. Like you set like a sort of poetic expectation, like, oh, this is going to be about the classics or something, and then it becomes this like really incredible like barroom conversation, right? Basically, this kind of I don't know, this kind of story that's told in exactly the way that someone would tell that story in real life. I love the like cadence of this, like how you capture the style of speech. But I also love the way that you set up these expectations and totally knock them down. And then at the end, it's like, oh yeah, remember these are great, man. And once again, so glad you're back.
Thanks.
And I think, unless someone has a piece they really urgently want to read, we're at about 10 o'clock now. I think we're going to call it there. And then, as usual, I'll leave the Zoom meeting open for a while so we can hang out. But yeah, this has been Misery Loves Company. As I said at the top, it's a weekly reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. We do this every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Anyone is welcome to come and share their work. Anyone is welcome to come and just lurk and hang out. We tweet out the link from our Twitter account @miserytourism right before we begin. And yeah, thank you so much to everyone who read tonight. This was a great fucking night. And it's one of those like loaves and fishes kind of things, right? That these kind of weird little miracles that we have sometimes at Misery Loves Company. We came in tonight and only Brandon and Rudy had signed up to read. And I was like, well, okay, we'll be done in 15 minutes. And yet there's just been this incredible outpouring tonight of really brilliant, really beautiful, really poignant work. So awesome, guys. Thank you for reading. And I guess
when does that ever happen?
Right?
That nobody signs up and then nobody actually reads. Like, when has that happened?
Well, one time we tried to do Misery Loves Company on like New Year's Eve, and it was just me, Rudy, Brandon, and Ryan. But we still found stuff to read. But yeah, that was probably the one time where we actually were like, wow, nobody's here. But otherwise, no, it's remarkable. It's always fucking remarkable. Anyway, I'm getting the recording there. Thank you, guys.